All right, welcome to the first video in this assignment. So this is actually, this is a word problem that uses the same material that you learned in 9.1 in class on Monday. We didn't get to the word problem, so I'm going to have you first start out with one of these, and then the next couple videos are going to get into 9.2. So the key to remember here when you're doing a word problem with these trig functions is really the word problem is just describing a triangle for you. So the key to this problem is to be able to draw a diagram based on the information given and then just solve that triangle and report back whatever information the problem's asking for. So there is a key word here that's important to know. Let's look at the problem. So a parasailer is attached to a boat with a rope 72 feet long. The angle of elevation from the boat to the parasailer is 28 degrees. Estimate the parasailer's height above the boat. So the key word right here is angle of elevation. Okay, now you're going to see this term used a lot in word problems, and it's important to know what that is. So just a quick diagram here. So let's say that this dot is you down here. So if you're looking at a point above you, let's just say this point here, then the line that connects these two is going from you to whatever point you're looking at. Now, if you draw a line straight down from that elevated point to the ground, and then connect the line from you to the point directly below that object, you see that you form a triangle. And because these are perpendicular, the ground and a line coming straight up from the ground, this makes a right triangle. So when you're talking about an angle of elevation, that's the angle between the ground and the line formed from you looking up at an object. Okay, so for example, in this problem, it says a parasailer is attached to a boat with a rope 72 feet long. So imagine that this is our boat right here. Now it's going to be kind of a corny little boat. That's our boat. And let's say that this is our parasailer right here. Here's the parachute coming out. And there's our nice little diagram. There's the parasailer. So you see from this we formed a triangle for the word problem. Now all that's being asked is to fill in the parts of this triangle from the information given and then figure out what part of the triangle they're asking us to solve. So in this case it says a parasailer is attached to a boat with a rope 72 feet long. That tells you that the length from the boat to the parasailer is 72. And it says the angle of elevation is 28. So right here, we already know two pieces of our triangle. We know an angle and we know the side. We're being asked to estimate the parasailer's height above the boat. So when you look at height, height is the distance from the ground to the parasailer. So that's this right here. So this we would call h, our height. So basically, we've got an angle, a side, and we're trying to find another side. So in this case, we need to figure out, first of all, which of our three trig identities can help us solve this. So let's go ahead and write those down. So we know that the sine of an angle is the opposite over hypotenuse. The cosine of an angle is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So A over H. And then we know that the tangent of an angle is equal to the opposite over adjacent. So O over A. So those are our three identities. I'm just writing all three of them down so you can see which values we use in each function. And then what we can do is we can look at our two our triangles here, our two sides, and figure out which one we know. So we've got this angle here, so we know that the hypotenuse is 70, and we're trying to solve for the height. Now just remember, this is the height. I'll use capital H for this because I don't want you to get that confused with hypotenuse. So if we look at these, you first need to figure out what two sides do you know relative to your angle. Well, we know the hypotenuse, and in this case, we know we're trying to find the opposite. So the equation that we want to set up needs to use this angle and the opposite and hypotenuse side. So if we go, we know that our sine angle is going to be what we use. So we can write down our equation. If we take the sine of 28, that's equal to, we do O over H. So in this case, let's do O over, our hypotenuse is 72. So this case, we get an equation. Sine of 28 equals the opposite side over 72. Since we're trying to find the opposite side, we can just multiply both sides by 72. So we get 72 sine of 28 equals the opposite side. And here, because this isn't one of our nice special angles, we're going to need to use a calculator to solve this one. And what we're going to do is simply plug in 28, take the sine of it, and multiply it by 72. When we do that, we get roughly 33.8 as our height. So that's going to equal 33.8 feet will equal the height of our sailor. That's all you do. Again, don't be intimidated by these word problems. All you have to do is first go through, set up a diagram. So I like drawing the little pictures. You don't have to draw those, but you do want to draw your triangle. Make sure that you label all of the angles correctly. Okay? In this case, the key is angle of elevation. The angle of elevation is the angle that's made from the ground up to whatever line of sight you're looking at. That's angle of elevation. Now, if you were standing, this is kind of a side note, if you were standing, let's say, at the top of a building and you were looking down, let's say you were looking down at an object and it said the angle of depression was 28 degrees, that would be the angle from the line of sight down. This would be angle of depression. Okay? So angle of elevation is from the ground up. Angle of depression is from a line of sight down. Now, one thing you should remember from geometry, because these lines right here are parallel lines, your angle of depression is actually going to be equal to the angle of elevation. So that's something to keep in mind as you go through and look at some of these word problems. You're going to get some practice problems to work on in class on Wednesday, and you're going to see the words angle of elevation and angle of depression. So again, remember, angle of elevation is from the ground up. Angle of depression is from usually a height, like a line of sight, downwards towards an object. Okay, so again, key here is being able to set up this problem. Now, what I want you guys to do, you can always pause it and come back and look at this. What I want you guys to do for your sample problem, I want you to do a similar problem. A parasailer is attached to a boat with a rope 80 feet long. The angle of elevation from the boat to the parasailer is 31 degrees. Estimate the parasailer's height above the boat. Very simple problem, exactly the same as we did, just the example I did, just some different values in here. So this gives you some practice using your calculator for the, being able to take a non-special angle and then being able to take this information and estimate the height. So go ahead and calculate this and type that into the answer box.